All right, hey everybody. I wanted to make another quick video from the last one I made. I've done a few other things. The biggest thing I have done was that I had replaced the drive belt on my wife's Sportster, and really I should have made a video of it. It was super simple. You take the belt guard off here, and then this is they call it a debris guard, and it also has your window for a belt adjustment. You take those two off. I've got a scissor jack. It's underneath the shovel head right now, but take a little pressure off the back of the frame so you can just take this bolt out, and then you slip the belt between the shock and the swing arm here, and then you take this plate off, which is a guard for your front pulley. And I went ahead and took the pipes off to make it easy. Put it on there, and then you just have to go back and adjust the belt tension. So that was a real easy one. And then also when I went to crank it up to take it for a quick ride, I put it in gear. The bike jerked forward and shut off, and it ended up being she was low on hydraulic fluid for the clutch. Somebody had put an aftermarket on there because it did not have that from the factory. So I got those things done, and then I took her bike off of the lift, and then went ahead and put the shovel head back up here because there was a few things that I had to do to it from the last video, which the main thing was finishing up the wiring harness. So I actually did that. I finished up the wiring that I wanted to do, and then I went to try to start it. Now, everything works, the headlight, the tail light, everything, the brake lights, everything works, the motor turns over. And what I did was, when I first cranked it up, I took the plugs out so there'd be no pressure on the cylinder so the motor would spin easy. But I took a spark plug in the wire and turned the ignition on, and then held it up against the heads here, cranked it, and no spark, nothing whatsoever. So I'm thinking, crap, no spark. I went to all this trouble, wired everything. So I started checking a few things. So I'm going to show you what I did. So the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to make sure that I had power to my coil, power to my coil and the starter relay. So I just took my gauge and I checked ground and here to where the power comes in. This is these blue and white wires are to the pickup under the nose cone on the other side. So the blue wire goes in the bottom, the white is the power. So, and then this is the power from the key switch to the coil. So if I check this power wire from the ignition, turn it on, I have 12.5 volts to this point. So I know I have power to my coil. I owned the coil out with the meter, and it was about 5.6, 5.7. I think it should be the max somewhere around 5.2, 5.3. The closer to 5, the better. 5.2, 5.3 is supposed to be what it is. So what I measured, 5.6 is not, it's not terrible, but it's not that great. All right, so the next thing I did was I took my test light. I got a test light with an alligator clip. So you take the test light and you hook it up to the bottom of your coil. All right. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to loosen the two standoffs that hold your pickup in place. And if you'll notice, you've got the elongated holes on either side so you can rotate this to time it. So you loosen those two up. What I did was I loosened them up and turned the plate as far back as it would go. That's in the most retard position. To the left is the retard ignition, to the right is advanced. So then you have, I don't know if you can see real well, but back in the back here behind this cam plate is your mechanical advance. Those are your weights. So as the engine spins, they open up. So to get them to open manually, you can grab this ring right here, which is part of it, and you turn it counterclockwise that way. And what you're doing is you're opening those weights up, and you're going to put them closer to the magnet. So you open them up, hold this all the way to the left. Then you're going to take, and this is kind of hard to do, just take your and I have a little bit of paint missing here. Really, I'm not going to fix this, so I'm going to do what I can to keep it from rusting, but I kind of like the little old wore out look. But if you hold your light on a ground point, you hold your mechanical advance as far open, and then it was kind of hard to do with one hand because my left hand was holding the test light. But then you can take your thumb and just rotate that pickup to the right, advancing it. So you hold the weights open, turn this to the right just a little bit until you see the light come on. Now, according to the instructions manual, and I believe this is a dyno ignition, I'm not going to swear, but you turn your mechanical advance counterclockwise, hold the weights open, and then you rotate the cam plate until until the light gets brighter. Now on mine, you can see the elongated hole. So when I loosened those up and rotated that plate, this part of the hole was all the way up against this standoff. So both of them were, to the point where they were turned all the way. When I turned it just a little bit, my light came on, but it was just on. It didn't get bright or nothing. So I had a good bit of movement that I could keep turning the cam plate to get to the advance the ignition more. The only problem is, and I'm sorry, I skipped a big step here. Before you do that, I apologize. I skipped a whole step here. This is an inspection hole. When you take this out, you'll see the top edge of your flywheel. And what I did is I used the scissor jack to jack my tire up just off the ground so it'll roll. And I put it in high gear. If you put it in high gear, it's a whole lot easier to turn the motor over with the wheel. And first, you're going to be turning a lot harder. Get that ratio down with a high gear, and you'll turn that a lot easier. So what I did was I had both spark plugs out, and I held my finger over this plug, number 1 cylinder, and rotated the tire until I started feeling compression on my finger. And then I came down because I knew I was getting to the top of top dead center. Then I came down here and just started bumping the wheel a little bit until I saw my line. And on these Harleys, it's just a line going up and down vertical on the crankshaft, on the flywheel, of the crankshaft. With that line dead center in the hole, that's supposed to be your timing mark when you do a static time. And static timing just means you're doing it without the engine running. So that's when you're going to come over and do what I said. Loosen these up, turn the cam plate all the way to the left, turn this center part, which is attached to your weights, to the left to open them up. Then start bumping this clockwise until you get a light. And the instruction says turn this until your light gets bright. Well, mine, the light just came on. I didn't move it very much, and I had light. Then as you turn it all the way, the light just stays the same. So I've got it set up right now in the farthest right position because that's where it was when I took it out the very first time. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my timing mark back on top dead center. I'm going to do everything, and just when I get the light to come on as I turn it to the right, I'm going to snug it down there, and then I'm going to go ahead and do a dynamic timing, and that's when you actually use a timing light. When you hook it up between you hook a timing light up between your number 1 plug and cylinder. And then there is a clear plastic plug that you can put here because you don't want to run with this plug out. I didn't even think about it being that bad, just bumping the starter over, but bumping the starter over a few times, and I had oil spitting, right here and on my arm and all. So you definitely don't want to run it. But the clear plastic plug you can put in there and then shine your timing light and you'll see it. I'm going to have to get a buddy to help me because you're going to want to move your pickup plate. You'll start moving it most likely, because when I loosen this up and turn it all the way to the farthest counterclockwise, which is the most retard position for your ignition, and turn it just a little bit toward advance and get light, I'm a snug there. I'm gonna have a good bit of movement. So I'm gonna have somebody moving this for me, or they can watch the light. Until I get in a dynamic with the engine running, until I get that that mark on the flywheel right dead center of the inspection hole. That is theoretically your perfect timing. Now you can advance or retard your timing depending on certain things if you want the motor to act a little different. And I got to do some research on this. This is my first shovel head, so I've never had to worry about it. I put a Daytona Twin Tech single fire ignition on the FXR, and I just static timed it and then set everything on the underneath the nose cone. The ignition there has dip switches that you can change for things like your rev limiter and a couple other things about the timing. So there's really not much you can do on that one to change your timing except with the dip switches. Whereas this one has the mechanical ignition, which is just one step above the points that came in the early shovel heads. And I even know guys that have shovel heads that came with mechanical points mechanical ignitions, electronic ignitions, and they went back to points on them. And there's pros and cons to both. I'm just, I'm going to run this because some people will tell me on this video, tell me that, points are easy, and it's not a matter of how easy it is. It's just that, to me, this is what came on it. I'm not going to bother changing to another one. All right, so I did all that. I put my timing mark on the flywheel, center of that inspection hole, came over here and just got a light. And then I went over there and held a spark plug up into the wire, hooked up to the wire and the wire to the coil, and had no spark whatsoever. And if I did see a spark, it was super duper faint. So now it's like, oh shit. I didn't have anything wired wrong because I checked and it had 12.5 volts to the coil, and I checked that I had power to my starter solenoid, so everything's hooked up right. So it was a matter of a couple of things: either the your pickup here, maybe the wiring or something, or the coil, the wires, or the plugs. Those are the things that, if you've got fuel, if you've got air, and you've got spark, it's gonna fire. All right. If you have fuel and air and you have no spark, of course it's not gonna fire. But the things that are gonna cause a no spark condition are possibly spark plugs, the wires, your coil, or your ignition. So like I said, I owned the coil out, and it was 5.6, 5.7. It would kind of bounce back and forth a little bit. So that is just a little bit more than it should be. The the wires ohmed out at about 0.5. They're good. These plugs, I bought a whole bunch of them because I know, being a shovel head and the carburetor, I'm probably going to smoke them out a few times. So I've got plenty of them. So the ones that are in there are brand spanking new. There's nothing wrong with them. And just to be sure, I grabbed another one off the shelf, threw it in here, and no spark. So then it was a matter of